Good evening to the Football League Weekly. We are back again. And Rhys, how are you? And we're a couple of weeks into the season now. How have you found everything so far?
Yeah, the EFL hasn't changed, has it? It's still a sort of controversial self. There's still teams who are underperforming, who are overperforming. We're already in a sort of managerial merry-go-round already, which I know we're going to touch on tonight. You've got big headlines with Birmingham City, the money that they've spent, the performances they've been putting in. You look at teams even in League Two, you look at Notts County and how well they've been performing so far this season. I don't think really anyone would have seen David McGoldrick in his sort of goal scoring rhythm that he's been in. You then look at the Championship, look at likes of Hull City. I mean, we all knew that Tim Volta would come in and there would be an expansive style of football. We knew they would score goals. We knew they would concede them. They've been conceding them. They've not actually been scoring any. I don't know if anyone in the chat, if Ian yourself, did you watch the Hull City against Sheffield United game? I was really underwhelmed by Hull in that one.
Yeah, and we'll touch upon Hull later on. They're playing live at the moment, but they haven't been brilliant at all. And Tim Volta, when he came in, he had a lot of hype surrounding him. People were saying that he's a brilliant manager. He prioritizes attacking football over defensive football. Even if his teams don't defend well, their football will at least be pretty on the eye and exciting to watch. And we haven't really seen that so far at all. And I wonder whether it is the fact that they have lost key players like Jacob Greaves, Jaden Philogene. I guess you could add Fabio Carvalho to that as well, because maybe Hull thought they could have kept him in the summer. But just to get back onto point, I wonder whether it's the fact that they've lost so many key players that they're where they are right now, because, they haven't really replaced them too well, in my opinion. They've signed quite a lot of players, but were they at the levels of, say, Jacob Greaves, for example? So maybe we shouldn't be too surprised. But as we're talking about Hull, let's make it a subject. Hull under Tim Volta. How long do you give him?
To be honest, I know it's mad to sort of say managers is under pressure. I think it's ridiculous to mention any of this in the Championship. We're only 5 game weeks in, so I think it would be silly to sort of mention, a manager sort of sacking or they're under pressure. But definitely, there's going to be an expectation at Hull. I know the players that they've lost, and it's going to be huge players, that they have lost, but to look as sort of toothless as they did in that game against Sheffield United, to concede those 2 goals in the manner in which they did, I found really, really disappointing. I thought that after the first goal they conceded, which was on a breakaway from a corner, on their lessons, they'd tighten up at the back, things would get better, but Sheffield United were able to score the exact same goal yet again. But if there's one positive to take from this Hull side, even in that Sheffield United game, they did dominate possession. They did have 16 corners in that game as well. Can they build on that, though? Because again, this possession stats, you can have those stats, they mean nothing. They still look toothless.
Yeah, and I agree. And Ian Bradley is going to El Crapco next weekend, Hull City versus Cardiff. So, yeah, that will be a very interesting game. 2 teams who this season so far have been massively underperforming. But let's talk about Stoke as well, because it is a new era at Stoke. They have got a new manager, the former Norwich City assistant manager, Narcis Pelach. First of all, before we go into any of the details about his contract, what do you make of the appointment?
It's another one that sort of has come with this trend of giving a first team coach their first proper head coach role. I know he did manage Huddersfield for 1 game as caretaker back in February 2023, but this is his first proper job. And what really impressed me from the off was a first interview. There wasn't sort of one area where he was focusing on. He wasn't saying, right, okay, we're really going to sharp up in attack. We're going to score goals. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. Instead, the way he spoke was about improving every single area of the pitch. And that's something that really stood out. You don't really hear that anymore. But I was surprised to see Schumacher get sacked. I don't know what people think in the chat about that.
Yeah, I mean, Schumacher, in my opinion, he's going to go immediately off to Plymouth should Wayne Rooney get sacked there, which would probably be a very unsurprising move. I do reckon Plymouth will give Wayne Rooney a bit of time, but we'll talk about Plymouth later on in their show. But I think Schumacher's sacking came at a surprise to a lot of people. If we look at how Stoke have done so far this season, they haven't started brilliantly, but they are 13th at the moment, where I think a lot of people would have thought they would be at the moment. And they haven't necessarily performed disastrously. They beat Fleetwood, easy game in the EFL Cup. They lost to Oxford in their last home game, but in the home game before that, on August the 31st, before the international breaks, they beat Plymouth Argyle 1-0. So if you look at their last 3 games, they haven't necessarily been performing too badly at all. And I do wonder whether their owners made a bit of a mistake of not giving Schumacher enough time. I'd be fascinated to hear in the comments down below what the Stoke fans think of their owners, because I know that their owners at the moment are splitting hairs. They're not necessarily the most popular. Some people like them, some people don't. So I'd be fascinated to hear any Stoke fans in the comments and what they think of their ownership. But Ian Bradley says 5 games in any sacking is balmy. I haven't actually asked you for your opinion on the sacking yet. Real quickly, did you think it was the right decision to sack Steven Schumacher?
It's absolutely ridiculous. If I'm being honest, I think Schumacher showed his quality at Plymouth and the job in which he'd done there. We're 5 games into a really tough and a really long season as well. I don't see what really they expect. The thing that stands out to me about this whole situation is that Jonathan Walters was asked by the press, okay, so why did we bring Pelach in? What does he have in his locker? What's different? Why can fans get excited? And the response he gave was, let's wait and see. It'll be proven over the next couple of months. That's not good enough from a fan's point of view. You look at the recruitment that Stoke have made. It probably is mid-table championship recruitment. I know they brought a very good goalkeeper in Johansson, and you can go through some of those other signings and say, okay, they're good championship players. But are those players going to elevate this Stoke City side from a mid-table sort of side into a top 6 fighting championship side? I can't see it. I don't see how Pelach by himself is really going to give them the extra push. You look back at his track record, Pelach, and there isn't really much there that stands out. He has just been a coach. There isn't much reason to get excited. So, look, it's a huge risk. Of course it is. And it's going to be one that fans are going to get instant success from, because if there isn't, then the board and the ownership are going to become even more unpopular.
And Ian puts a very good point in the chat that most owners are in it for the money and know nothing about football. And there have been multiple examples of that in recent years in the EFL. And I think it's easy to kind of like make that comparison to Birmingham and how they performed last season. But I do wonder with Stoke, and again, I'm saying this with a lot of naivety. I don't actually know a lot about the Stoke ownership. But I do wonder whether they need more footballing brains behind the scenes. So that being said, Jonathan Walters is their director of football. So I do wonder how much responsibility in regards to the decision-making falls onto Jonathan Walters, whether it was his decision to get rid of Steven Schumacher. But we never know. And Stoke, as you just put in the chat, they are winning 1-0 at the moment. Who scored their goal, Rhys?
It was, let me have a look for you, 2 seconds. It was Wilmot. So to be fair, actually, are we wrong to be doubting Pelach at this stage in time? Maybe we should do 180 our opinions. But look, regardless of the result tonight for Stoke, it's got to be about consistency. It's got to be about what it can do in the long term, because what's needed at Stoke is a project. It takes a lot to do what Schumacher actually achieved at Stoke, which was taken from a relegation-bound side, sort of fighting that end of the table. And he's gone to mid-table at the moment anyway, 5 games into this new season. So I don't see what else Schumacher really could have done in order to save his job. I think it's a very, very harsh sacking. I've got no doubt that Schumacher's going to find another club relatively soon.
So let's talk about Cardiff City as well, because they're a team who are also struggling massively at the moment under Errol Bullitt. This is the Bluebirds' worst start to a season in 35 years, which is a very worrying stat for them. 1 goal, 1 point, and propping up the championship after 4 losses in 5 league games is obviously a concern for any manager. So, look, Vincent Tan, I remember a couple of years ago on Football League Weekly when David was here, we were talking about him in great detail and how abysmal his ownership of Cardiff has been. When Errol Bullitt first came in and he started well, I think that distracted a few of the critics. But now Errol Bullitt is struggling. The critics are coming out against Vincent Tan again, and inevitably against Errol Bullitt himself. So what do you make of the situation at the moment at Cardiff, Rhys?
Look, it's been a dismal start. I don't think there's any way to sort of cover up. I think it's been an awful start. It really has. But I'm not going to sort of contradict what I just said about Stoke. I think, again, 5 games in is absolutely ridiculous. I think a Bullet has been really backed in this transfer window as well. I spoke really highly about Cardiff's recruitment and how impressed I've actually been. You look at the lineup and the players they had available against Derby. You look at the likes of Willock, who only made the bench in that game. Robertson, again, only on the bench. The players that started, like Perry MG, Callum O'Dowda, El Ghazi. I know he's a player who's perhaps getting on, but definitely got quality in that. Colwell, another one. Is it perhaps, again, just teething problems? Is it just seeing a team getting to gel? The problem is that you can put it down to these reasons, but there's only limited time in football. They're already 3 points away from safety. They're conceding far too many goals, by far the worst goal difference within the league as well at -10. And the next 2 games for Cardiff are incredibly tough, at home to Leeds and away at Hull City. I don't see any points in those 2 games.
Can you put responsibility, and this may be a really stupid question, so bear with me a minute, but how much responsibility should Vincent Tan take for where they are at the moment? Because they've hired and sacked so many managers in recent years, the likes of Neil Warnock, Mick McCarthy, his successor, Steve Morrison. So how much responsibility should Vincent Tan get for where they are at the moment?
Yeah, I'd say definitely more than the fair portion. I think you can always put Cardiff in recent years in the same sort of basket or bracket, if you like, as Watford. In the fact that they just need to stick to one manager. They need to back him really well, which, to be fair, Vincent Tan has done, in my opinion, really, really well this summer window. That's got to stay at that same level. They've got to keep beside Errol Bullitt. I know, again, there's controversy within the Cardiff City fans, and again, we'd love to hear from a Cardiff fan's point of view, because we are just talking, from a sort of neutral. Has the football been good enough? No. Have they conceded too many goals? Yes. Have they got enough of an attacking threat? Again, I'd argue no. But it's just a gelling process. You look at the games they've had so far, and really they're not games you'd expect them to get much from. I know there's going to be a lot of sour sort of faces when you look at the Swansea game. Obviously, it's a massive, huge game whenever you play your rivals, and to only get a draw out of that isn't something that's going to live in the memory, if you like. But when you play the likes of Sunderland and Middlesbrough, Derby, who have just come up, they've got the momentum. I think Cardiff fans have to have a little bit of patience here and just trust in the process and the project that Errol Bullitt is actually building.
Yeah, and I think you're spot on by saying that. And it's a real shame to see why they are at the moment, because Cardiff are a good club. And Vincent Tan, again, he's another owner, and we'll talk about Reading later on in regards to our conversation about poor ownership in the EFL, and we'll also be talking about non-league football, for the matter. But we're talking about bad ownership, like Vincent Tan, he should have sold up ages ago, and I'm honestly still surprised that they are where they are at the moment. And good evening to everybody in the chat. Again, good evening to Ian Bradley. Good evening to Ballum. Lovely to see you here. Let's quickly move on to Plymouth. We won't stay too long on Plymouth because they haven't played yet as of recording. So we want to keep this show as fresh as possible before people listen to this. But we don't know how they're going to perform this weekend. But in the game before the last one they played, this is us talking as though we're talking about the game after, if this makes sense. A lot of verbal gymnastics here. They beat Sunderland 3-2. So obviously a big win for Plymouth Argyle. But what do you make of Wayne Rooney's start under Plymouth? And a couple of weeks ago, Rhys, we said give Wayne Rooney a chance. Do you reckon we are still under that belief, if you will?
Yeah, I'm firmly still in the keep the Wayne Rooney, give him the chance to really see what he can do. At the end of the day, Wayne Rooney is a young English coach, and I think everyone in the chat can agree. We all want to see young England, I think we can all agree in this chat here that all we want to see is young English coaches go to the top of the game. I mean, thinking about it long in the future, how cool it would be to have Wayne Rooney as the England head coach. Look, that's miles away, absolutely miles away. I just hope that this victory against Sunderland can be a turning point for him. I hope it creates some sort of momentum and it can install some belief. Win and late on against Sunderland, a young Sunderland side, yes, but a very impressive victory. And that's a side, Sunderland, that I expect to be fighting for top 6 this season, if not at least top 2. The problem is they're going into a very difficult fixture against West Brom away on Saturday, or if you're watching this after the game week, I might be proven wrong. Plymouth might go and absolutely storm at Hawthorns, but it's a very difficult game. The difficult thing about that, of course, is that we all know how good last season West Brom were at home under Carlos Corberán. So realistically, there ain't going to be much momentum left after that game, is there? So you have to look beyond that, and it's going to be one game at a time. I just hope this is a turning point.
Yeah, and we've got to understand that West Brom are very good at home. They've started the season very well as well. So I'm just assuming that they're going to lose that game, or at least get a draw out of it. We're now going to move on to League One, and we can't wait to talk about... I don't know whether "can't wait" is the right phrase here, because later on in the show, at the very end, we're going to be talking about the new National League Cup. So stay tuned for that. We have plenty of opinions on that. But let's move on to League One and start off with, I want to talk about Reading and Dai Yongge's absolutely abysmal ownership of the club. In my opinion, they should have sold last year. I feel really bad for Reading fans at the moment. But in a statement about 2 days ago, I think, as of recording, Dai Yongge said that a deal had not been reached between him and a potential new buyer. And that was despite claims and sources stating that the new buyer was incredibly committed to making a breakthrough in regards to the purchase of the club. So look, absolutely abysmal. I have a few statements to read in a minute, but real quickly, this has happened time and again at Reading. Another statement came out. I don't think it was a statement, actually. It was actually a news article came out a couple of hours ago now, as of recording, saying that there was another potential buyer interested in purchasing the club, and that talks had already happened. But it gets to the point, Rhys, where it's almost like the boy who cried wolf. We hear these statements come out, and we hear it so often now with Reading, where a potential new buyer is coming this close to buying it, but it ultimately falls through. So what do you think of this situation, and how sad is it to see a club like Reading get mistreated like this?
Looking there, I can remember Reading, within my short existence of watching football, I remember Reading in the Premier League in the top flight. I remember them in the Championship being a really, really big club. And now we're in a situation where, Ian Bradley just got it perfectly in the chat. I'd argue Reading are almost dead at this point because the EFL are doing nothing. It's another club that unfortunately is going to die. Look at the likes of Bury. And thankfully now they're now getting back on their feet, Bury FC, and hopefully it won't be too long before they're back competing in the EFL. The proper, I can't remember what the test is called, but the proper fit and owner test for EFL owners is absolutely appalling. There isn't a fit and proper test at all. You look at the damage that's been done to Reading FC. You look at the women's side, and that's as good as gone as well, to be honest. The statement came out that it just wasn't possible to continue backing the women's team without significant ownership funding. So realistically, Dai Yongge and these sort of gang, if you like, aren't interested at all in keeping this club afloat. So the line that actually really stuck to me and really annoys me was within that long statement that the club published. Dai Yongge, I think the line was something like, "Mr. Dai remains committed to selling Reading FC." What an absolute load of, the word that's coming next. I think it's absolutely rubbish.
Can swear. Bullshit.
Can we? It's absolutely bollocks, mate. It's bullshit. It's a load of crap. It's red flags. It's throw up the blooming smokers and expect everyone to listen to you, isn't it? It's absolute bullshit. It really is. At the end of the day, the fans have got to come first, and they finally looked to be some light at the end of the tunnel when we got our hopes up. Reading fans must have been partying and celebrating. It looked as if pronounced as Quhig, Rob Quhig. Again, pronunciation isn't my strong point. It looked as if there was going to be a way out. It looked as if they've got there. They've got their man. You look at his ownership as a whole, he has a tenure. They've had 18 points deducted under Dai Yongge. How many more until the EFL go, well, actually, this might be a problem? Not yet. Reading FC as a club are too big for League One. And I know it's that old saying, a club's too big for a league. No, they're not. They're in that league for a reason. I get that argument. But Reading FC are not a League One club. At the very least, they're a Championship club. It's like when you, and again, analogy is not my strong point. I'm going to roll with this. It's like having Albert Einstein in his prime beside you, but you're saying he can only work for 2 hours a day. And that's exactly what the EFL are doing to Reading. They're restraining Reading, and they're not giving them the funding and giving them the fit and proper test that the fans deserve. And at the end of the day, only one person suffers. It's the season ticket holders. It's the fans that go every week.
Yeah, and I have a few questions to ask you as well in a minute. But Nigel Howe, the CEO of Reading, released a statement. I'm not going to read it word for word because it is so obvious that it was written by ChatGPT. But basically, the gist of it was that Dai Yongge was the one who turned the sale down, and they didn't. I'm not going to try and pronounce the potential buyer's name, but the potential buyer couldn't come to an agreement with him. So Dai Yongge was actually the person dragging his legs a little bit, which is a real shame to see. And apparently it's also going through the court as well. So potential, I'm no lawyer. I don't know the ins and outs of what is happening, but it is a very complicated case indeed. And a couple of questions as well. Thank you very much to everybody who's joined us in the chat as well. Why didn't Berry go, but Maxfield did? Have you heard of Reading brand Sell Before We Die? Yes, we were talking about Sell Before We Die last season, which is how long this has been going on for. So it's absolutely ridiculous. But why didn't Berry go, but Maxfield did, Rhys?
I mean, what a question that is. I think that pretty much sums up the sort of state of the EFL and how absolutely appalling their management of the league is. These questions are fantastic questions, and they're ones that really we can't really answer. But the Reading brand of Sell Before We Die, I think it comes from every football fan in this chat, every football fan in the country. If there's anything any of us can do, then reach out. The problem is, of course, is that how many more protests are going to happen? There's talks of walkouts. There's talks of fans simply not attending these games to try to get media attention. There's so many things going on. You think about the tennis balls that are thrown on the pitch. You think about the signs that the fans held up. How much more has to happen in terms of fans' frustration, in terms of fans' anger, for the EFL to step in and do something? It's appalling mismanagement.
Yeah, and it's a real shame to see. And sorry if you can hear knocking in the background, by the way, on my end. There's some work going on out there. But yeah, it's a real shame to see. But let's move on in League One at the moment. And we're also actually going to stick on to Reading as well, because Ruben Sellers made a statement and he said he has had enough of the club's lengthy takeover after, again, and as we just discussed, an attempted deal by American lawyer and businessman Rob Keogh. There, I pronounced his name quite well. Real quickly on Ruben Sellers' behalf, how do you reckon he's thinking at the moment? What do you think he's thinking at the moment, should I say?
Well, I think it's pretty obvious that the frustration that he has within him, it takes a lot for a manager to come out and say, look, I've had enough of this ownership. I've had enough of the board. I've had enough of how long it's taken to get done. And if Reading aren't careful, they could lose a really, really good manager in Ruben Sellers. He's a manager that I think if you took out the points deductions they'd had to endure at Reading, if you give him a proper transfer window where he can bring players in, I'd be pretty confident to say if he has all those boxes ticked, next season Reading can fight for top 6. I really believe they've got a really good manager here. The problem is the ownership has failed. That box is gone. Ownership have failed. They've got a manager with the potential to be let off the leash and really change his club into something, but he's restricted again. The players they brought in, I'm very impressed. Look, yes, I've lost some big names, in the summer transfer window, Reading. But again, if the proper money is put into funding replacements, into funding better players, then we're going to be competing. If Ruben Sellers goes, who are they going to bring in? Who's going to want to come as a young manager, as an experienced manager? Who's going to want to come into a club with all this sort of bad energy around it, with all the bad surroundings around it? It's not an attractive job, even in the slightest little bit.
Yeah, and I agree. But let's move on to something a little more positive. Birmingham battered Wrexham the other day. It was an absolutely thrilling game if you watched it. But the thing that I wanted to talk about was the Birmingham owner coming out to the press and stating that they have ambitions of playing a Birmingham versus Wrexham Football League game in the United States. So I'll drag up the statement in a minute so we can get a bit more of an idea of what he meant by that. But what do you make of EFL games in general being played in the United States?
We've sworn once. Apologies, by the way, if you can hear a doorbell going off. That's my Just Eat. Don't worry, it's our takeaway because some groceries being delivered. The joys of going live, and having to work all day and get food delivered in the evening. Obviously, I was now. When it comes to league games or any games, we talk about in the Premier League when there was talk about Premier League games once the season becoming, having one game played abroad in the United States. What's the purpose of this except to get money? Because you're deluding your own fans. You look at Wrexham and the statement that they put out in Welsh. A very small percentage of their fans can actually understand that statement. There's a real big dialogue or mismatch between the fans and the ownership. Yes, we all want to see these owners come into these clubs and make positive changes. To see what's happening at Birmingham and Wrexham. It is good to see it. Of course it is. We all want to see these teams do well, apart from Wrexham. We want to see them climb the leagues in the best possible ways. The problem is that when you start moving these games abroad, again, I bring it back round to that same box I mentioned earlier when we talk about Reading, the fans. We're in a cost of living crisis here, in Britain at the moment. If suddenly, let's say in your team, Rotherham, if they suddenly play a game in, I don't know, let's say Japan. Let's say they play Rotherham v Burton Albion in Japan. Don't know why, but it is what it is. That's going to rule out so many season ticket holders and so many fans from being able to attend these games. I've got nothing against playing friendlies abroad, having international tours during pre-season. I think that's absolutely fine. Go do your money, go play your games. League games need to be played in the country of the team in which they're in. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and look, I don't want to say that American owners destroy British football because we're Ipswich fans. We have American owners themselves. But I was reading up on it wasn't a statement. It was an American news article about what was happening whilst you were talking, and it's mostly Birmingham. I don't want to get Wrexham tied up in this because Wrexham haven't made any formal request yet, nor have Birmingham for the matter. But Tom Brady and kind of like his team, if you will, they have had thorough discussions about the potential of playing over in America and their desires to play Wrexham because, it's a Hollywood tie. I don't like seeing this because, personally, I think football is going further and further away from its roots. And we see that with television deals every day, how fans are being priced out of watching football. I think I put a tweet up the other day saying that at the moment for me to watch football, it's £50 a month, which is absolutely ridiculous. How anybody can afford that? I've cancelled quite a few of them because, it's simply unaffordable. And just to kind of like divulge a little bit and go off topic, it really annoys me as well how the Champions League now on Amazon Prime. That is like another bill for football fans as well, which is absolutely ridiculous and I can't stand it. But back to League One and Birmingham. The reason I say this is because a lot of the reason these things happen, in my opinion, is because of what we see happening in the Premier League at the moment and the globalization of the Premier League, because it is a big league in America. They play preseason tournaments over there almost every year. Most Premier League teams go across to America to play their preseason. And I think with the romanticization soccer, as they call it in America. It's inevitable that a rich American celebrity is going to want to buy an English football club. We've now seen that with both Wrexham and Birmingham, and look at the discussions that we are having at the moment. Personally, I quite like Rob McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds, listening to what they've spoken about, how they treat their local community. They haven't necessarily done anything wrong. The thing that I don't like, though, is the Birmingham owners, Tom Brady, and everything that we are hearing behind the scenes. But anyway, I went on a small rant there, Rhys. Can you justify playing EFL games over in America? Because if you think about it, it could bring quite a lot of money to the English League pyramid, couldn't it?
I mean, the money it could bring in would be monumental. Let's be absolutely honest. I think, with the backing that Rob McElhenney has over in America and Ryan Reynolds as well, I think people would be flooding, to watch games in America. I think it'd be absolutely flooding. If you had Birmingham v Wrexham in America, it would be incredible. Would it have the same atmosphere, let's say, for instance, in League One, if it's Bolton against Burton? First two teams coming to my head, Bolton v Burton. Would the American fans be as interested in that game as they are in Birmingham and Wrexham? No, of course they wouldn't be. Therefore, it probably wouldn't be the best idea, to be fair. I see the point about money, and I can see the revenue that it would bring into the club, which of course is a good thing. But I'd argue what's more important to a football owner. Is it money or is it fans? Because if you play these games abroad, let's say it's 2 games per season, you play these games abroad, you then rule the fans out. And at the end of the day, fans pay hard-earned money. And a lot of the time, it's very, very expensive to go to football. And you're taking 2 more games off fans who, let's be honest, for 8 months of the year, 9 months of the year, it's all we do. I mean, we're sat here now talking about football. It's all we do. So to take more from the fans when they're paying more and more, it's almost stupid. It's bordering on stupid, in my opinion. You're on mute, mate.
That happens every week. Oh god, we need to have like not a swear counter, but a mute counter. But Ballon made a comment that made me laugh. Do you see Wrexham v Birmingham selling out? Is it the same as Morecambe v Bromley? A brilliant comment. And Wrexham already went to the USN pre-season, didn't they? Yeah, and last season, Paul Mullin suffered a very serious injury during a pre-season game against Chelsea. I think, if I recall, somebody's going to fact check me on that, I'm sure. But let's move on and talk about other things going on in League One at the moment, because things aren't going too well at all at the moment for Bolton. And real quickly, Rhys, sum up what is happening at Bolton at the moment. Ian Evatt has been absolutely disastrous for him. He's tried to convince the Bolton fan base that he is calm about the future, that he will find a way out of the situation that they are in the league at the moment. But it's simply not working out for Ian Evatt, isn't it, Rhys?
I think it's a big hangover happening from last season. I think it's a massive hangover, and it's now that added pressure, I think, at Bolton as well, where the fans are now expecting them to be within that top 6. So I'm not going to get too much on Evatt's back. I'm not going to lay too much blame at his door because, again, you've got to look at the teams in which they've played. Wrexham at home, Charlton away, Huddersfield at home. They're all teams that should be in and around that top 6. And I know it doesn't bode well if Bolton are to finish in the top 6. I know losing these games and drawing these games isn't going to give them much momentum. There is an argument, however, because I always like to be balanced. I've given reasons why we should, back here never, we look at the games that they've played, but you've also got to look at it from the other point of view. Is he too tactically naive? Because you look at the squad in which they've got Bolton at their disposal, there's goals within that. Is he just not getting the best out of these players? You look at the likes of Collins up front, Dempsey, Dion, Charles, Matete, central midfielder, who is a player I'm a massive fan of. You've got Dakris Cogley up and coming on the right-hand side. Is the fault really laying at Ian Evatt? I'd probably argue that it is, to be honest. But look, we're 5 games in. I'm not going to jump on any manager's back. I'm not going to say they should be sacked or that. But I would say he's under pressure. under pressure, not necessarily to get results straight away, but at least get a better style of football going. Because you watch these games, and I believe it was the third goal against Huddersfield, where Bolton are trying to play out their own 6-yard box. It's embarrassing. I think the goalkeeper passed the centre back who gave it away, and Huddersfield score probably the easiest goal they're ever going to score this season. It's not working. There has to be a plan B. And a comment there from Ian about when they click, they'll be okay. But how long is that going to take? You look at the league table at the moment. They're 21st. Okay, they're only in the relegation zone by goal difference. That's something you can look at and say, okay, well, the damage hasn't been done as of yet, so that's a positive. But how long? On how much longer until a change is required, because the team that Bolton have got arguably is the best squad on paper within League One. The thing that's not working at the moment is Ian Evatt. Look, we should be patient. We should have time with Evatt. You look at what they achieved last season. For me, it's just the added pressure of having that expectation to finish in the top 6.
The problem that I have, and Ian Bradley says here, best team in the league, Bolton, is the fact that it's been a while now. And I remember when I first did the Football League Weekly with David, and this was quite a while ago now, in 2021, on one of the first shows that I did, that was like just the two of us. We spoke about these absolutely ridiculous comments that Ian Evatt had made to the press. And the ridiculous comments was him saying, "We are the best team in League One." And I'm going to read you some of his quotes right here. And this, again, was from 2021. But he said, "I expect us to be number one. I expect us to be first. I'm in the league. People will say that's arrogance. That's overconfidence. But on performances, I believe we're the best team in the league. We should have won all those games." I'd love to see what Ian Evatt thinks right now of how they've been playing, whether he's cringing a little bit at the fact that that was now 4 years ago, or approaching 4 years ago now anyway, since he made those comments. Because I think, personally, again, I'm sure there are Bolton fans who will agree with me or maybe disagree with me. If you do, let us know in the comments. Tell us why. But I think Ian Evatt has been given more than enough time, really. He's been at Bolton for absolutely ages. Every season, they're always there and thereabouts, but they never get over the finishing line. And kudos, fair enough, to the Bolton owners for giving him time, because time is a commodity in English league football. You don't see many owners giving managers that much time. But if I was the owner of Bolton, I'd be putting serious pressure on him at the moment, because, again, it's been a long time since he made those comments, a long time since Ian Evatt took over, and they were initially favourites to get out of League One. And it seems that every year they have the very same expectations that they should be getting promoted under the brilliant style of football that Ian Evatt plays, with some of the brilliant players that they have, but it never seems to happen. And, I don't think Ian ever seems to learn. That's just my opinion, but I don't think he ever learns after some mistakes that he's made at Bolton. That is with the caveat that there are, of course, kind of like, they do have limitations, basically. So, I'm not saying that, like Bolton are a team like Birmingham and Wrexham who should be turning their team into HMS Pistol League. No, I'm not saying that, because there are obviously limitations at Bolton Wanderers, and given that, Ian Evatt has done quite well, but I still think they have a good squad, and I still think that pressure will be under Ian Evatt, because it's been a while now since he's been there, and I don't necessarily think that they've shown any real significant improvement. And this is despite the fact that if he did get sacked and a new manager took over, he would be at a very good club. But I'm just saying, a bit of a rant here, but I just haven't really seen any improvements, and I do think he's under pressure. But what do you think of that, Rhys?
Yeah, I get the fact that this season and previous seasons haven't been good enough, but I think we can almost excuse the start to this one, because we are only 5 games in, and you look at the teams in which they've played, and realistically, would you expect them to beat Wrexham at home? It would be tough. Would you expect them to beat Charlton away? Probably would, to be honest. Would you expect them to beat Huddersfield Town at home, who are a side who've just dropped down from the Championship? You'd say a point is a positive thing in that game as well. I think there needs to be an air of sort of realism about Bolton at the moment. I think it's, and I'm interested to hear your opinion on this, and anyone in the chat as well, actually. If we wake up tomorrow morning and Ian Evatt has been sacked at Bolton, what would be your reaction to it? Because I could understand it, but I think it's premature based on this season.
Well, they have just gone out and spent $1 million on a Hungarian player called Shabalak Shlong. That is his name, I swear. Joining from some Hungarian team in January. So they have spent some money, and they've also signed players who are currently on a higher wage at the moment, such as Scott Arfield, who we all remember from, can I remember? Burnley and Rangers. He actually came on a free transfer from Charlotte FC in the MLS. So they have hired quite a few good players, like Jay Matete as well, on a loan. So, I do think that they should be a team up there competing. But, it's interesting. And next week, I wonder what we'll be talking about, Rhys, in regards to Ian Evatt. What our discussions will be like in regards to Ian Evatt. Before we do move on, do you reckon he'll be sacked in the coming week if they don't win tomorrow?
To be honest, I can't see him sacked just yet, and I think it would be wrong to sack a manager after 5 games. However, there has just been, of course, a very good manager released from his duties at Stoke, of course, Steven Schumacher. Perhaps they've got an eye on him. I wouldn't be surprised to see him go there. So actually, not bold take, clip this up. I'm saying next time we record, or maybe within 2 weeks, actually. Give me 2 weeks. Steven Schumacher will be the next manager at Bolton Wanderers. I can see that as a really good fit, to be honest. I think we could go in there and do a really good job. But I like the idea of, if you look a few comments back, I like the idea of a manager transfer window type of thing. I think that would give managers more of a chance. I'd say within the player transfer window, a manager also, well, that's the chance to sack your manager. If you don't sack your manager within the transfer window, you stick by him. I think that gives managers a lot more time. You look at the most successful managers that this country. You look at, like I said, Bobby Robson, Sir Ralph Ramsey. I mentioned the Ipswich ones first, of course. You look at Sir Alex Ferguson as well. The one thing in common that those 3 managers all needed was time. And we can't go around the same process of wanting instant success. And when that doesn't happen, sack the manager. Bring someone young in, doesn't have instant success, sack the manager. You're only going to go around in circles. You need to give these managers time.
Yeah, and I was just about to go into that comment by Ian Bradley, actually. It was a really good comment. And he also asked, Arfield is 40-something. I think he's 35. He's getting on a bit as well. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see what we talk about next week. So tune in for that. But elsewhere in League One, there's still plenty to talk about that I think we'll leave until next week, including Steve Bruce and his start at Blackpool. But maybe once he's 2 games in next week, there'll be more to talk about in regards to how they've started, what Blackpool's style of football will be like under Steve Bruce. Hint, it won't be exciting. But let's move on to League Two, because we have quite a bit to talk about in League Two as well. Mike Williamson has left the MK franchise. I beg your pardon, the MK Dons for Carlisle. Carlisle met his release clause in his contract. It's fair to say, though, Rhys, before we kind of like delve into how Mike Williamson had performed at the MK Dons, that he was on the verge of getting sacked anyway. So if anything, it just looks nice on his resume that he didn't get sacked from the MK Dons. He was just poached by Carlisle United. So what do you think of that manager transfer, if you will?
Yeah, I think Mike Williamson going to Carlisle, I think he goes to a proper football club now. He goes to a football club where the resources are a lot better. I think he's going to a Carlisle where the Piatek family, the ownership, have proven that they'd stand by their man. They're not going to be this second club. He's going to get time to build his team. He's going to get time to sort of build his project there. The only thing I would say is going from MK to Carlisle, there's a lot of fan expectation at Carlisle to bounce back up into League One. There is that expectation, so can he manage that? You look at what Mike Williamson done at MK Dons last season, got them in the playoffs, and we probably won't talk about the 8-1 defeat on aggregate to Crawley over the two legs, but the season as a whole was a very impressive one of MK Dons. He got them playing some really good football. They signed some really good players as well this transfer window, MK Dons. I look at the likes of Lawrence Maguire, which is the signing that really stands out to me. Centre-half started very, very well at MK. Can he balance the sort of tide, if you like, with having the pressure and the expectation dumped on them a little bit more from the fans? Not necessarily from the board. I don't think the board would do the managerial sacking, sort of roundabout sacking. But I think there's a lot of fan expectation at the club.
I have something here if you want to read. Oh, what does that say, Rhys?
Is it WW? It's the MK franchise.
Yeah, we all love hate the MK franchise. But anyway, I can't stand them. I won't hide the facts that I can't stand them at all. Anyway, going on about the MK franchise, Mike Williamson went to the MK Dons in October of 2023, picked up 10 wins in his first 15, won League Two. He was manager of the year in December 2023. So, how do you reckon he'll get on at Carlisle, though? Because as you said, Carlisle are a proper club. They have got some resources as well. I know you just went into some detail on it, but do you reckon it to be a better fit for Mike Williamson as he's also closer to home?
Yeah, I think it's a move that you can look at sort of different parts of the move. You look at the personal side, you look at the career side, you look at it as a whole, and it's a move that really ticks every single box. He's going to be more comfortable up that end of the country as well. You look at the players that Carlisle have got, lots of Charlie Wyke up front, who really shouldn't be in League Two. You look at the forward power they have, the likes of Jones, the likes of Sadie up front. You look at players they bring on, likes of Josh Wheeler and Armstrong. These are players that really are playing at the top end of League Two and really should be competing at that sort of level as well. It should be League One players. It has been a poor start, of course, for Carlisle. Obviously, that's no blame at all to Mike Williamson. It has been a poor start for Carlisle. So it's going to be about sort of getting into that change room. It's going to be installing some belief. It's going to be where you need your big characters to really sort of step up and make themselves sort of known. I think he's proven last season that he's a manager capable of taking a League Two club into the playoffs. Can he create that next step and get into the playoffs and compete at Wembley, perhaps? It's one of those where only sort of time will tell. But I think by Williamson, he's proven if he can take a fake club like MK and get them into the top six, I've got no doubt he can take a proper Carlisle side that one step further.
So let's quickly run through the next two topics as we have plenty more to talk about on the show. Real quickly, let's talk about Notts County and the way they've started the season, and in particular, David McGoldrick. We all remember him from Ipswich and how good he was for us, but he's even better at Notts County. So Notts County and the start that they've had with David McGoldrick up front. What do you make of their start to the season, Rhys?
I mean, what a start it's been. To be top of the league, I don't think really anyone had that ticked at the start of the season. I had them down to finish in the playoffs and to potentially win the playoffs from there. But David McGoldrick individually, we all know that he lacks that yard of pace, if you like. He's never been a player who's going to spin in behind, run 30 yards and have the finish to match. What we do know with McGoldrick is that he's an absolutely unbelievable finisher. And some of the goals that he has scored already this season can go down as goal of season contenders. I can't remember the game it was. Perhaps someone will be able to remind me. He takes the ball about 30 yards out and finds the top right corner. It's an absolutely incredible finish. But overall at Notts County, what's impressed me is the goal scoring sort of how free it's been and how many goals they actually have scored. We're only sort of 5 or 6 games in at League Two level. They've already scored 4 goals on 2 occasions, 4-1 against Grimsby and 4-2 against Bromley. And that Bromley game is the one so far in their season that actually really stands out to me as a massive result. They took, obviously, in a game against Bromley, they were 2-0 down very early in that game. And to turn it around, have that character, to have that belief, to keep going, it takes a lot, and it can take a lot out of you going 2-0 down away from home. But the character which I've got within that side is fantastic.
Yeah, and I agree. And let's talk about Notts County's start a minute. 14 points from 6 games, 8 goal difference at the moment. Again, this is as we're talking, because I know this podcast will more or less be listened to after the next match day. Curtis Edwards has been, well, he is unfortunately out until Christmas, facing surgery. But again, they have got plenty of brilliant players in the squad to fill in for him. And finally, because this is very much an impromptu segment of the show right here, let's talk about a team that Ian Bradley in the comments is worrying about at the moment, Accrington Stanley, because they're always in the news for the wrong reason. Hasn't quite clicked for John Doolan just yet at the MK Dons. They're not bottom of the league, Morecambe are, but they're on 23 points at the they're 23rd in the league at the moment on 2 points. So Accrington, look, we've spoken about their owner a lot in the past, Andy Holt, but I reckon they're going to go down, don't you, Rhys?
With every show we do, I'm going to get more cocky, and my ego is going to explode even more, because I had Morecambe and Accrington as my 2 to go down. I think with both those clubs, there's a real lack of sort of firepower. There's a real lack of, okay, how are they going to get out of this? You look at the teams that sort of around them. MK Dons, we know they're going to come to fruition. It's just going to take time. We know they have quality within that squad. Grimsby have shown on occasion that they can sort of pull away, but potentially they'll get dragged back into it. Carlisle are in a really good place under Mike Williamson. Could anyone give me reasons why Accrington and Morecambe, in fact, that matter, actually have reason to be positive? I know in Morecambe's last match day, again, that's probably going to sound wrong if you're listening after the match day tomorrow as we record, but Morecambe's last match against Colchester, 3-3. That character, where did that come from? Where has that been in the opening 5 games apart from that? To go down to 10 men and still recover a 3-1 deficit, to still get a draw out of that game, it's sensational. And if they keep that same belief going, then look, potentially they can get to a place where they can find safety. But I just can't find Morecambe as a club any reason to be positive. And I agree with that comment. Accrington as a club, absolutely fantastic. And there was a comment right at the start of the live chat from Ballum where he mentioned about Andy Holt coming on. All I'm going to say is keep tuned and watch your space.
Imagine. I've spoken about in the past. It's almost like my anecdote every time we talk about Accrington, how brilliant their owner was to Ipswich fans when we played away at their place in League One. And again, they're a brilliant family club, a brilliant community. I don't think Andy Holt is a bad person. I don't think he's a bad owner. I think he's a very realistic owner. But they're still where they are at the moment. And again, after Andy Holt's Twitter outburst last year, questions are starting to be raised. But the final topic of the show, we rarely talk about non-league, as this isn't a non-league show, and the Vanarama National League isn't League 3. But at the moment in the Vanarama National League, I don't know what the cup is called because I'm not reading off my notes at the moment, but simply it is the Papa John's Trophy of the National League. Doesn't that sound brilliant? So basically in the National League, there's going to be a similar cup competition to the Papa John's Trophy, where under 23 sides from Premier League clubs will basically be involved in the competition as well. So, for example, you would get, and Eastleigh just released a statement in regards to what they think of it, which we will read in a little bit. But for example, we would get Eastleigh versus Manchester United under 21s, Fylde versus Newcastle under 21. So that's the type of competition that it is, with a £1 million prize pot at the end of it, which for the clubs in the National League is quite a lot of change, isn't it, Rhys? But what do you think of the competition? I hope I did it justice in regards to how I described it, but it's not very popular, is it, Rhys?
All it is a chance for Premier League clubs to play more players, to get more games into the legs, and younger players will get the odd game here and there. I can't remember what competition it was in or what team it was against, but I think it was Brighton against Crawley. Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but James Milner and I believe it was João Pedro come back from injury. Both of those players started that game. It was meant to be an under-21 side, so it tells you exactly how these Premier League teams are going to take this competition. It's going to be another excuse to bring back these first team players. They're on the sort of fringe, if you like, or come back from injury to get them some minutes. I'm going to take this from a Tamworth point of view because I've got mate who supports Tamworth, and they've just been promoted into the National League. They're still playing with sort of part-time players, not a full-time club as of yet. And I believe they're the only team, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe they're the only team in the National League who are still part-time. These players have side jobs. You know, they're regular people like all of ourselves in this live chat. They're not full-time footballers. They're not on 50 grand a week plus 80 grand on sponsorships. They're regular people who, when you're a club of that size, with a huge amount of respect, of course, when you're a club of that size, all these games is a way of getting more injuries and disrupting your season, especially from a Tamworth point of view. They're very similar, if you like, to Ipswich in the Premier League. They've just been promoted. They're the sort of boys that everyone expects to get relegated, but are there for the one season and think, you know what, we're going to enjoy it while we can. We're there for the ride. Whatever happens, happens. And now they're getting more games pushed into them simply for the sake of it, for the sake of money, for the sake of greed. And that's really all it is. You look at the 4 game weeks that they've got Newcastle, Sunderland, Middlesbrough, and Leeds. At least they're all at home, hey? At least that's something to be positive about. These National League sides are going to be at home, so they're going to get the gate receipts. But are the gate receipts going to cover the cost of the match day staff, of all the costs that come with operating a football club? Of course they aren't. So the majority, if not all these National League clubs, are going to end up losing money. So all it is a chance for the Premier League to flex guns again.
Yeah, and I think you're spot on. And it's a real shame to see that happen. Now, I have 2 statements about it, but before I do read the statements, the Premier League chief executive came out, and again, this was kind of like an example of how out of touch the Premier League is with the rest of the EFL, and how maybe eventually one day they'll get their wish and kill it entirely. But the Premier League chief executive basically went on record to say, look, this is a brilliant opportunity for Premier League clubs, and this is a brilliant opportunity for non-league clubs as well, which in my opinion is absolutely preposterous. And again, as I just said, out of touch. But real quickly, I have 2 statements on hand, one from Eastleigh and one from David's Rochdale, David being the old host of the show. The Eastleigh statement goes like this: the competition, we feel, benefits the richest in the game at the expense of the poorest, many of whom are fighting to survive. So on balance, we feel the right directions for clubs and fans at this level is to withdraw. So I was reading that word to word. It wasn't me messing up. It wasn't really, the grammar wasn't great at all in the statement. But Rochdale have announced that they will be taking part in the inaugural National League Cup. And basically, they've acknowledged that it has been received to a very mixed reaction, but this is what they said in regards to justifying why they have decided to join the Cup. The first point to make is that either a fairer financial distribution model was in place or a proper football pyramid of 3 up, 3 down between EFL and the National League. We may not have chosen to take part in the competition, but concentrate fully on a promotion push for one of the 3 league places. The Premier League, the English Football League, and the National League have been unable to sort this out between themselves, and it is clubs like ours that are suffering financially because of this. We hope the proposed football regulator can intervene and force a settlement before another club goes out of business, as we so nearly did earlier this year. We are not in a position as we try to run our club as sustainably as possible to turn down the welcome income that this competition welcomes. And we recognise that this is at least some income being distributed further down the pyramid. Look, I'm not going to read any further in their statement, as it was quite a long statement, but I think a lot of the feeling towards all the clubs that have accepted an invite is the fact that it gives them welcome income. And clubs like Rochdale, for example, Oldham as well, they've been in financial difficulty in the last couple of years. They've almost gone into administration. So if they did win the cup, that 1 million would be very welcome to them. Even should BT Sport any of the games, the TV revenue potential. But that's just me playing devil's advocate. Those aren't my thoughts, by the way. But after that statement, Rhys, and to everybody else in the comments, because I'm absolutely fascinated to hear what you all think, whose side are you taking and what do you think?
Yeah, I'm purely 100% on the side. I think this is absolute bollocks. I really do. There's no consideration for these smaller clubs. Tamworth are one, that are part-time. These are players who football isn't their life. They've got a day job outside of it. They've got to squeeze these extra games now. They've got to get time off work. The gate receipts aren't going to cover the match day costs, so they're going to be losing money. So only one team in this, which might not even be a National League side, a Premier League 2 under-21 side, could potentially win this. So every National League club could end up losing money. Just in case there's anyone out there wondering who the Premier League 2 teams are, Ipswich aren't one of them. The teams that have opted in from Premier League 2 are Blackburn Rovers, Brighton and Hove Albion, Fulham, Leeds, Manchester United, Middlesbrough, Newcastle, Forest, Reading, Southampton, Stoke, Sunderland, Tottenham, West Brom, West Ham and Wolves. So, just a rough overview for the teams that have entered it. But let's be honest, all this is an excuse for Premier League clubs to get in more money or to get more players, minutes, I should say. What I understand is we can have this new competition, right? This new competition can go ahead, but we've got to change the FA Cup format. We've got to change the League Cup format. We can't do 2 legs because players get too tired, blah, 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 and all this absolute bollocks. You look at Rodri at Man City complaining like an absolute little... I won't finish that sentence, but Rodri complaining like a little crybaby on Sky Sports saying, I can't play 50 games in a season. The EFL play 46 games just in a league alone. So that comment doesn't really add up, does it? They play the Papa John's Trophy. You've got the FA Cup. You've got the League Cup. That can easily equate to 60, 65, 70 games in a season. So he's talking absolutely out of his backside with that comment. And it goes to show you how out of touch the Premier League and the EFL, also how out of touch the Premier League is with the EFL in that respect. You look at the whole Super League. Would anyone agree that it's actually already happened? And what I mean by that is the new Champions League format. It's already in a big league. It's already happened. The Super League is here. It's happening. It's gone ahead.
I was looking at my phone because I was trying to fact check myself, and the thing that I was trying to fact check myself on was the fact that Truro, who are in the National League South, they played 11 games in 24 days last season, and players like Rodri have the audacity to, I'll say the word, to bitch about their schedule and how many games they have to play. It's interesting that Reading, because I didn't realise this, that Reading were one of the teams that accepted the invite, because maybe they're doing it because of the financial incentive as well. But personally, I'm very torn between this, because I do kind of see why a lot of the poorer clubs in the National League will want to accept it. But I'm very much a football traditionalist, I think the fans should be the priority of the National League and the Premier League. I reckon they should put the fan base first. And a lot of football fans on social media, and I think it's fair to say this, have, disagreed about the new competition and are up in arms about it. If anything, it gives these part-time players, because if you think about it this way, they're not necessarily putting the players into consideration as well. If you're an academy player, you're probably won't have that many games anyway, and you have the support system, the facilities to get back to full fitness, to look after your body, and to be looked after by good physios. But if you're at a team like, as you just mentioned, Tamworth or another National League team, you don't have that infrastructure. If you're a player there, you're either working a part-time job or you're a fitness trainer or whatever they do. So these are part-time players. They have full-time jobs. They work a schedule like you and I, a schedule that facilitates their playing career. But you see what I mean? Like, it's absolutely ridiculous. And I think both the National League and the Premier League are actually thinking about the clubs and themselves and not necessarily about player welfare. And look, a lot of non-league clubs do have under-21 sides as well. So maybe it'll turn into, and I reckon this is what it will turn into, a dead rubber of a competition where we will see National League sides kind of like, if they don't like the competition and are forced to enter anyway, build their own under-21 sides against Premier League under-21 sides. So it's a real mess. I don't think it's been very well thought out at all. And I'd be interested to see how it runs and how it performs, because, it could be a real mess, an absolute mess, even if it doesn't work. And non-league players do get injured, important players as well. It'd be absolutely interesting to see what happens. So let's quickly take a look at the comments at the moment. David retired from over the bar, confirmed. We're hoping to have him back on soon. He started a new job. He's been very busy at the moment, so hopefully he'll join us soon. I miss having him on here, actually. I enjoy talking about Rochdale with him, and Rhys and I will be delighted to have him back on for a few shows soon, and hopefully we will be having somebody else join us as well. So plenty of new faces to join the Football League Weekly. Balham, there is a Premier League club, by the way, of Premier League teams and some random European teams. Example, PSV of Holland. Ian Bradley, gate receipts. Look at the Bristol Street Motors Trophy. Yeah, that'd be fascinating, actually. I'll try and look for that up in a minute once I ask you a question, Rhys. I'm just going to go down. So, okay, Balham, so much to talk about. Will free up and free down ever happen, or is that a long way to go? And do you think England will be kicked out of Euro 2028 or only paper talk? So free up and free down. Personally, I don't see why that wouldn't work. It was only, if I'm not wrong, it was Bury going into administration that caused that, because they had to remove them from the league, and they've just kept that format ever since. So free up, free down. Do you reckon that'll ever happen, Rhys?
I'll be honest, I absolutely am on board 100% with that idea. The thing that's always sort of not annoyed me, but what played my mind a little bit with promotion and relegation within the EFL itself, though, is League One, 4 teams go down, League Two, vice versa. Why is that a thing? I think that needs to be sorted to 3 and 3 first, and then we look at that. I'd love to see National League 3 up, League 2 3 down. I think that's a fantastic idea. The only thing I fear is that the Premier League have already shown with this new, I think they call it, is it the Vanarama National Cup? I think they're calling it. I might be wrong. They're showing with this cup that they're incredibly out of touch with the National League. So I wouldn't expect anything to happen anytime soon. I mean, you look at Tamworth again. I reference Tamworth a lot because, as I say, I've got a friend who supports them, and we talk about them a lot. Their main aim for the National League is simply survival. Are you going to tell me they're going to give 2 hoots about some stupid National Cup with all these Premier League sides? And of course they're not. That their only goal is staying up.
Yeah, so I've been unable to find the gate receipts for the Bristol Street Motors Cup, but looking at the moment at kind of like statistics that are available, and I'm not too sure which club this is, but it looks pretty official. Guess how much somebody paid for a ticket for the Bristol Street Motors Cup?
I mean, just for one match ticket into a pretty pointless BSM, I wouldn't be paying more than 15 quid.
Somebody spent 60 quid on, again, take that as you will, but somebody spent 60 quid on the ticket, which is really hard to believe. That must have been like in the director's box or whatever. But anyway, let's go on to the questions. Wow. And I'm just going to read through them a minute. Quickly do a few of the plugs whilst I'm reading through the questions. Rhys, where can people find you on Twitter? And tell us about, because we do have a few new people joining us, tell everybody about the new person joining us, if you will.
Yes, I've actually got, I guess you could say, 2 people new going to be joining us. I'll confirm with the second person, hopefully get him on for an episode where we talk more about the National League, when we're talking about Tamworth and how they're sort of faring, but also cover the National League in a bit more detail than itself. So hopefully doing that very, very soon. We've also got another guy hopefully going to be joining us extremely soon as well in the next few weeks. He sort of looks at the EFL as a whole as well. Really, really close friend of mine as well. So hopefully he'll be on for an episode or 2 in the near future.
I'm just reading through the comments at the moment because we've answered most of them as we went through the show.
To be fair,
yeah, carry on.
I have got a question quickly. Everyone put their guesses in the comments below. Got a question for you. It's going to be totally random. I've not even told Ben the answer to this yet. Which EFL club do you reckon so far this season has accumulated the most yellow cards? I'll give you a hint. It's not Leeds.
Ooh, that is... I want to say Stoke because I associate them with the likes of Ben Walmart, Ben Pearson. Players always pick up yellow cards. So is it Stoke?
Stoke are not in the top 12 on this list.
Really? I'm surprised to hear about that.
Yeah, they're showing me the top 12.
It wouldn't be Sheffield United. I don't think it would be them. It would be a lower team, I reckon. A team towards the bottom end of the Championship, or who you would think would traditionally be that. Portsmouth?
Bang on, mate. Portsmouth are tied top with... Actually, another guess. What number are you saying, mate? How many?
15, maybe?
Higher.
So I thought 15 would be a lot. 30?
Not quite. 20.
Oh, that's still a lot.
They are tied with another team. They are tied on 20.
Absolutely ridiculous.
I'll send you this graphic, and in the post edit we'll put the screenshot on the we'll put the screenshot in the post edit. If you can guess in quickly, there's another team that's on 20 yellow cards in the EFL. I'll give you a clue. Championship.
20, another team, so joint with Portsmouth at the moment.
Joint with Portsmouth, 20 yellow cards.
Oxford?
No.
In the EFL, or is it just the Championship?
Just the Championship, this team. And Rotherham are not in the top 12. Rotherham are not in the top 12.
And what is this for? Is this for yellow cards, red cards?
Most yellow cards.
Okay, I've confused myself here because my brain is going around in clockworks. I'm trying to think because traditionally I'd think of a team who are playing really, I don't want to say bad football, but the type of football that kind of like facilitates the need to like dive into tackles, pick up that many yellow cards. Millwall. Is it Millwall?
Millwall are not in this list. And Swansea are not in this list either.
So good evening to everybody in the chat, by the way, because we've had a few people joining us. Good evening to Richo. Thank you very much for joining us. Would it be Plymouth Argyle?
Plymouth are not on this list. Neither are Leeds. How
Because
many more guesses are we saying?
Adam Forshaw has the most yellow cards at the moment in the Championship.
Oh.
So Richo says Leeds. Ian says Millwall. Oh god, it has to be a team towards the end of it at the moment. Would it be, given how defensive they were last season and how Tom Cleverley is a very defensive-minded coach, would it be Watford?
It's not. I'll give you another hint. They're not towards the bottom of the table.
Not towards the bottom of the table. God, who would it be then? It wouldn't be Coventry, because I don't associate that kind of football with Coventry.
Not Cardiff either.
A team who we've spoken about today,
we haven't spoken about them tonight, no.
We haven't. Bristol City under Liam Manning?
No. Well, this is really good, by the way. No.
Is it the Budgies? Norwich?
Norwich are on this list with 16.
16 yellow cards.
Not Middlesbrough. God. Shall I reveal it? Or do you want one more guess?
Yeah, go on. One more guess.
One more guess.
I'll do one more guess, and I'll wait for everybody else in the comments to put their ones as well. So Ian, Richo, them to put their last guess in before we all reveal it. Okay, I'm just going to do some logistical. And by the way, Hull City have gone 2-1 up against Stoke City, which will be totally irrelevant by the time people listen to this back. But I'm going to go, okay, classic answer. 3-1. Who scored?
3-1 now. I'm only getting the goal notifications, to be fair. I can have that answer to you in a second.
So Regan
Casey
Slater
Palmer
scored. Casey Palmer again. God, he's a good player. Ian Derby.
Not Derby, and
so
not the Blade.
Luton were my choice because I traditionally think of Luton as a classic non-league team. I know they've been in the Premier League in recent years, but I associate like the John Still style of football with them and the Nathan Jones. Is it Luton?
Luton Town are not on this list.
Oh, I was just about to celebrate. Okay. Who is it then?
Stoke aren't on this list. To be fair, I think it would be here. I don't think you guys would guess this. It's Burnley.
Burnley?
It's Burnley with 20.
Wow. Maybe we shouldn't be surprised because of Craig Bellamy. Like, if you think about their manager and what he was like during his playing career, then Craig Bellamy, he was a very kind of like shithouse style of footballer. So maybe that is not surprising at all. But anyway, that just about wraps up tonight's show. We do have a new feature coming next week as well, if we do have time, called Guess the Programme. I have so many Ipswich Town programmes in my collection. We're going to go back into the archives next week, and we're going to play a game where you have to guess who is in the opposition's squad. It will be EFL related, so it will be from when Ipswich were in the Championship and League One. But there will be some surprising names because both Rhys and I played it off air last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever we last recorded. And there were some players who we were surprised were still playing that were brought up. So that is to come next week. We will try and be back next week, possibly earlier. We'll see when our schedules align. We'll let you know earlier on. You can find us on Twitter at OverTheBarFB. You can find us on YouTube as well. If you just type in OverTheBarFB onto your search engine, you will find us on there. We are on Twitch as well at OverTheBar2. And we will, of course, see you next week. You can find me on Twitter at OTB_Benjamin. Thank you very much to everybody who's joined us tonight. It is great to be back. We really enjoyed having every single one of you here. And we will see you all next week.